Okay, today we're going to look at RecordPoint's capabilities for Data Security Posture Management, or DSPM. There are multiple aspects to address when it comes to DSPM. Understanding what data you have and where it is, whether the location of that data is appropriate given its content, understanding the sensitivity of that data. For example, are we talking about trivial data or sensitive data, such as people's passports? And minimizing the amount of data you have so that you're only holding on to what is absolutely necessary to conduct necessary business operations to minimize the impact of a data breach if it does occur. In this demo, we'll see how RecordPoint addresses these issues. Let's dive in. The first section we'll navigate to is our connectors section. This is what enables us to ingest data from multiple sources across your entire data estate so that we can view all of our data through a single pane of glass in RecordPoint. By doing this, we can understand what data we have and where it is so that we can understand any potential risk areas when it comes to data security. RecordPoint's capable of connecting to thousands of sources, whether it's cloud-based platforms like SharePoint and Google Drive, or in network file shares where we can install our proprietary on-premise agents. Regardless of where your data is, RecordPoint will be able to connect to it so that you can properly understand it and manage it for optimal data security posture across all of your sources in a single unified platform. Once we've connected all of our data, we'll want to get an understanding of what we've got. In the Browse section, I can see my data as it's coming in, what type it is, and which source it's sitting in. In the context of data security posture management, I might be most interested in the data which is particularly sensitive, i.e. would have the highest impact in a data breach and would be most attractive to malicious actors. Let's run an advanced search for all records that have come from SharePoint, which also have personally identifiable information or PII in them. And here we can see all of those records, which I might want to take a certain action to further secure. If I click into one of these records, you can see that I can look at just about any of the record metadata that you could think of, which means that I'm also able to search and discover content on the basis of any metadata you can think of and take the appropriate action accordingly. In addition to that, and probably more important in a DSPM context, if we head over to the signals panel, this is where we can start to understand some of the privacy or sensitivity related information when it comes to that record. So for example, this search we ran was on records with PII, and we can see that our software has identified that this particular piece of data does in fact contain PII. Then to further break that down, I can see that it's a person's email, name, and phone number, which have contributed to that signal. This is obviously very important in a security context because one of the major factors of any breach is the impact of that breach. It's one thing to be breached and have some redundant, obsolete, or trivial data compromised. It's another thing entirely to have people's personal data breached, especially if it's your customer's personal data. The latter requires a much firmer security posture than the former, and the first step in making that assessment is in understanding the data in terms of its value or sensitivity. So within RecordPoint, I'm able to view and manage that data at the level of each individual record. And then using our reporting capability, which we'll look at in a moment, I'm also able to look at my data inventory in aggregate. Over here in our report, I can start to get a sense of how many items I have, how many of those items are sensitive records and therefore require additional attention, and whether there's PII or PCI present in any of my records. I can then start to get a sense of where that data is, and again, where my sensitive data is. At the end of the day, we want this report to tell us where our attention is required in terms of security posture. So this is a great way to get an understanding of that at a glance. Over here, I can also see if I have any excessive duplication of data and duplication of sensitive data. So I can understand if there are vulnerabilities in terms of data leakage across the organization and my data sources. This all helps me answer the question, where is my attention required, or where do I need to firm up my security posture when it comes to my data estate? All of our data is synced to Snowflake, which means that customers have complete access to report on their data in whatever way they see fit. So while we have our out-of-the-box reports like this, customers are also able to have direct access to build their own custom reports or add this data to existing reports in Power BI, Tableau, or any visualization tool of your choice. I'll come back to the platform now and we'll start to take a look at RecordPoint's classification capabilities. Classification is another way for us to aggregate and understand our data so that we can apply the appropriate security posture to it. It also allows us to set retention policies against those categories so that we can automatically take actions on it, such as disposing of records that we should no longer keep. Classification is a matter of setting up a classification system or file plan, which we can see here, and then classifying records against those classes or categories. There are two primary methods RecordPoint employs to classify records: rules-based and AI-based. The rules-based method works by defining a logical set of rules, such as if an item exists in a particular content source, then classify it as such. I can then get quite detailed in terms of how comprehensive those rules can get. But it does mean you need to define each of those rules explicitly. The other option is AI-based classification, which, as the name suggests, lets AI do the heavy lifting. The machine learning engine works by training a model on as little as 50 documents, which it can then use to classify records as they come in at a very large scale. All I need to do at that point is accept and/or reject classifications the AI gives me, and I can set an auto-accept threshold for when I know the model is highly confident in its prediction so that I can automate that process entirely. When you think about what this enables, in the face of many, many millions of records, this takes you from a place where significant classification and understanding of your data is either impossible or takes a matter of months and years, to a place where not only is it possible, but can be done in a matter of hours or days. Given that classification is a key part of understanding your data, this level of automation is crucially important so that you can make proper decisions about the kind of security posture you should be maintaining. Another crucial component of data classification is its implications on the retention or minimization of that data. When we're thinking about our security posture, a key thing to have in order is having the right amount of data so that you're only holding on to what you actually need for operational purposes. In order to know when we should get rid of a particular piece of data, we need to understand what category it belongs to and set our retention schedule accordingly. For every one of my categories, I'm able to set a retention schedule with a lot of options for configurability. So in this instance, I'm saying if something is classified as an accounts payable record, then destroy it after 3 years from when it was created in the source. In the context of security posture, this means that I'm able to automatically manage the minimization of my data at tremendous scale. You will have noticed in many of the high-profile data breaches, which have been happening more and more often, that a large part of the problem is simply that the organizations were holding on to customer data that they just didn't need to have in the first place. So using a security posture platform such as RecordPoint, you'd be able to automate the process of deleting that sensitive data at the exact moment that you should be, regardless of if you have 10 documents or 10 million documents. In RecordPoint, this is simply a matter of seeing which records are up for disposal or further action based on their retention schedule and sending them off for approval to be disposed of. On the other side of this workflow will be someone to approve that action, and once approved, that data is disposed of in its source, ensuring that you never have any more data than what is absolutely appropriate for business purposes. So in summary, for data security posture management, RecordPoint enables organizations to understand what data they have and where it is, whether the location and security of that data is appropriate given its content, understanding the sensitivity of that data so you can make better decisions in regards to it, and minimizing the amount of data you have so that you can minimize the risk and impact of a data breach if it does occur. Thanks for watching.